Stand up from your chair right now without using your hands. Go ahead. I'll wait. If you had to lean hard, rock forward, push off your thighs, or reach for the armrest just to get up, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because that one small movement may be telling you something important about your future mobility. Not next year. Not 10 years from now. I mean, the next season of your life. A lot of adults over 60 think leg weakness arrives slowly, politely, almost on schedule. They think one day the stairs feel heavier, the curb looks taller, the grocery bags feel more annoying, and that is simply what aging does. But that is not always what is happening. Very often, what looks like just getting older is actually something quieter. Something that does not shout. Something that does not send you running to the doctor with sharp pain or a dramatic symptom. It slips in under the disguise of normal aging, and because it looks normal, it gets ignored until the day it becomes expensive. I'm talking about 3 specific nutrient gaps that can quietly weaken the chain between your brain, your nerves, and your legs. Vitamin B12, magnesium, and vitamin D. And here is why this matters so much. Lower body weakness is one of the biggest fall risks in older adults. Once the legs start losing strength, balance often goes with them. Confidence goes with them, walking gets smaller, stairs become negotiations. And then, without much warning, independence starts shrinking too. What makes this dangerous is not only the weakness itself, it is the story people tell themselves about it. They say, I'm just slowing down. They say, I don't move like I used to. They say, that's normal at my age. Sometimes it is normal aging, but sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is a fixable problem hiding in plain sight. So here is what I am going to do for you in this video. First, I'm going to give you 2 simple at-home checks that can help you notice whether the problem looks more like balance and nerve signaling or leg power and muscle endurance. Second, I'm going to walk you through the 3 nutrient gaps that can quietly chip away at leg strength after 60, and I'm going to do it in the order they often show up in real life. Third, I'm going to show you why one common category of medication can make this worse even if you think you eat well. Fourth, I'm going to give you a food-first recovery strategy and the exact doctor conversation that can help you stop guessing. And fifth, near the end, I'm going to show you the one mistake many careful, health-conscious older adults make when they try to fix this on their own, and how that mistake can keep their legs weak even while they think they are doing everything right. Let me be clear up front, this is educational information, not personal medical advice. I'm not here to diagnose you through a screen. I'm here to help you recognize patterns sooner, ask better questions, and stop dismissing important signals from your body. Because the real tragedy here is not that some people lose leg strength after 60. The tragedy is that many people lose it for months or years before anyone asks why. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Richard. Richard was 67. He lived in a split-level home and still thought of himself as strong, not athletic maybe, but solid, capable. He walked most mornings, he did yard work, he carried his own groceries, he still got up on a step stool to change light bulbs without thinking twice. Then, little things began to change, not enough to scare him, just enough to irritate him. He noticed the low sofa in his living room had become annoying. That is the word he used, annoying. He would lean forward and push off his thighs to stand. He told himself the couch was too soft. A few weeks later, he noticed he was climbing the stairs differently. He was not exactly struggling, but he was leading with the same leg over and over, almost like the other leg had become the assistant instead of the partner. Then his daughter noticed something he had not said out loud. When they went shopping, he was no longer casually pushing the cart. He was leaning on it. That is an important moment, because this is usually how the decline begins. Not with collapse, not with drama, with compensation. You begin helping your body in tiny ways. You push off the chair, you grab the rail, you shorten the walk, you avoid the basement, you skip the extra trip upstairs, you stand still a little longer before turning. Each adjustment feels smart. Each one feels safe. But together, they create a trap. Because the less you use your legs, the more your legs weaken. And the more they weaken, the more you avoid using them. That loop can tighten for months before anyone sees it clearly. Richard kept compensating. He did less walking because his legs felt heavy. He stopped carrying laundry downstairs. He parked closer to store entrances. He told nobody, because what exactly was he going to say? "Doctor, my legs feel older than the rest of me?" He waited. Then one rainy afternoon he caught the edge of a step coming into the garage. Not a dramatic fall. Just one bad miss. But the reflex that should have caught him was slower than it used to be. He went down on one knee, hit hard, and for the first time, he got scared. Not because of the bruise, because he realized he had been feeling weaker for a long time. When he finally got evaluated, several things surfaced. His vitamin B12 was low. His vitamin D was low. His magnesium status was not reassuring. And the symptoms he thought were random: heavy legs, slower rising from chairs, a little numbness in the feet, shakiness on stairs, suddenly formed a pattern. That is the pattern I want you to understand today, because legs do not run on muscle alone. Your ability to stand, climb, catch yourself, and walk confidently depends on 3 layers working together. First, your nerves have to send the message. Second, your muscles have to respond to that message. Third, the muscle tissue itself has to be maintained well enough to do the job. And those 3 nutrient gaps can weaken all 3 layers. Let's start with the first layer, the nerve signal. This is where vitamin B12 matters more than most people realize. A lot of people think B12 is just an energy vitamin. That is too simplistic. B12 matters for healthy nerves. When B12 runs low, the nervous system can begin to misfire. The signs are not always dramatic at first. They can show up as numbness in the feet, tingling, strange sensations, poor balance, clumsiness, or a feeling that your legs are not quite responding cleanly. That matters because walking safely is not just about strength. It is about communication. Your brain has to know where your feet are. Your feet have to sense the floor. Your nerves have to carry signals quickly enough for your body to adjust in real time. If that communication starts breaking down, you may notice it first in the dark, or on stairs, or on uneven ground. You may feel slightly unsteady turning around. You may catch your toe more often. You may begin watching the floor more than you used to. That is not always a muscle problem. Sometimes it is a nerve problem wearing a muscle mask, and older adults are at real risk for low B12. Why? Because absorption becomes harder with age. Some people produce less stomach acid, some have changes in the stomach lining, some eat less meat, fish, eggs, or dairy, and some take medications that interfere with B12 absorption without realizing it. So the person who says, "But I eat reasonably well," can still end up low. Now let's move to the second layer, muscle performance. This is where magnesium becomes very important. Magnesium does not get the same attention vitamin D gets, but it should. Your muscles and nerves both rely on it. Magnesium is involved in hundreds of processes in the body, including the processes that support normal muscle and nerve function. When magnesium runs low, people do not always get a giant warning sign. The body often adapts quietly for a while, but over time, low magnesium can show up as weakness, fatigue, poor exercise tolerance, muscle cramps, twitching, shakiness, or a sense that your legs tire too quickly for the amount of work you are asking them to do. That is why some older adults describe their legs in ways that are very specific. They say, "They feel heavy." They say, "My legs give out faster." They say, "I can still do it," but the legs don't feel reliable. They say, "After one flight of stairs, my thighs feel done." That "done too early" feeling matters. Because the issue is not always that the muscle vanished overnight. Sometimes the problem is that the muscle is not functioning smoothly, recovering well, or getting the support it needs to contract and relax efficiently. And magnesium is especially tricky because measuring it is not always straightforward. A routine blood test may not tell the whole story. Most of the body's magnesium is not sitting in the bloodstream waiting to be measured, so people can assume, "My labs were normal," when the full picture may deserve a more careful conversation. Then we get to the third layer, muscle preservation itself. This is where vitamin D enters the story. Most people think vitamin D only matters for bones. That is incomplete. Vitamin D is also important for muscle function. When vitamin D is too low, muscle weakness can develop, especially in the lower body. And that matters because the lower body is what keeps you upright, catches you when you stumble, and gets you out of a chair without momentum and prayer. Fast reactions matter more as we age, not less. You do not need strong legs only to walk farther. You need them to recover from mistakes, to catch the wobble, to correct the misstep, to stop the stumble from becoming the fall. And when vitamin D is low, that protective capacity may get weaker. Now here is where people get confused. They hear that vitamin D matters, so they assume more is always better. That is not a safe conclusion. Vitamin D is important, but high-dose supplementing on your own is not the same as targeted correction based on your actual level. In fact, vitamin D supplementation has not consistently been shown to reduce falls in all community-dwelling older adults, and chasing high levels blindly is not the smart move. That is the twist many people miss. You do not win by guessing harder. You win by identifying the right gap and correcting it intelligently. Let me show you how these 3 problems can look in real life. Take a woman I'll call Denise, age 72. Denise was careful. She read labels. She bought quality supplements. She took vitamin D faithfully because she had heard over and over that it was essential after menopause and after 60. But her legs were still cramping at night, her thighs still tired easily on stairs, and the more she focused on vitamin D alone, the more frustrated she became because nothing seemed to improve. What she did not realize was that her body does not operate in nutrient silos. Vitamin D may be part of the picture, but it is not a solo act. Magnesium plays into that story too. So the person who keeps adding more vitamin D while ignoring the rest of the system may not get the result they expect. Now take someone else, a man I'll call Alan, 69. Alan had been on an acid-reducing medication for years. He took it so routinely, he barely thought of it as a medication anymore. Just part of morning life. Pill, water, move on. But some acid-reducing medicines can interfere with the absorption of vitamin B12 from food. Long-term use can also be associated with low magnesium. So Alan's issue was not only what he ate, it was what his body was failing to pull from what he ate. That distinction matters. Because a person can say, I eat eggs, fish, and yogurt, and still be low. A person can say, I take care of myself, and still have a gap. A person can say, I've had regular checkups, and still have this missed. Then there is the third type. I'll call her Nora, 74. Nora was not careless, she simply ate lightly. Toast in the morning, soup for lunch, maybe tea and crackers in the afternoon. A small dinner, not much appetite, not much protein, not many rich nutrient sources, no big illness, just a slow, quiet under-eating pattern that had been going on for years. Her weakness did not come from one dramatic deficiency. It came from the slow arithmetic of too little support for too long. That is what I want you to hear. These problems do not always arrive like emergencies. They often arrive like erosion. Now let's make this practical. I want you to do 2 simple checks. The first is the single leg balance check. Stand behind a sturdy chair or near a kitchen counter so you have support if you need it. Lift one foot slightly off the floor and see whether you can balance on the other leg for 10 seconds. Then switch sides. Do not do this recklessly. Safety first. If that feels surprisingly difficult, especially on both sides, pay attention. Trouble there can reflect balance problems, lower body weakness, sensory issues, or nerve-related issues. It does not diagnose anything by itself, but it is useful information. The second is the chair rise check. Sit in a stable chair. Cross your arms over your chest if you can do so safely. Then stand up and sit down repeatedly for 30 seconds. Count how many full stands you complete. This kind of chair stand test is used clinically because it tells you something important about lower body strength and endurance. If you cannot do it without using your arms, or your number is lower than expected for your age, that is a signal worth taking seriously. Do not panic over one home test, but do not ignore it either. Write down what happened. Which side felt less stable? Did you need your hands? Did your thighs burn quickly? Did your feet feel uncertain? Did you feel strong but unsteady or weak but steady? Those details help separate "I'm getting older" from "something specific may be slipping." Now let's talk about what to do next. Step 1. Stop normalizing the pattern. If you are over 60 and you have noticed rising from chairs is harder, stairs feel different, your legs feel heavy, your feet tingle, or your balance is less trustworthy, do not wave that away automatically. The earlier you recognize the pattern, the more room you usually have to improve it. Step 2. Bring it to your doctor clearly. Do not say only, "I'm getting weaker." Say this instead: "I've noticed more difficulty standing from a chair without my hands. My balance feels less reliable. My legs feel heavy or tire too fast. I'm wondering whether vitamin B12, vitamin D, magnesium, medication effects, or another issue should be evaluated." That is a better conversation. You are not self-diagnosing. You are giving useful clues. Step 3. Ask whether your medication list could be contributing. This is a huge one. Long-term acid reducers can affect B12 absorption and may be associated with low magnesium. Metformin can also reduce B12 absorption. Some diuretics can increase magnesium losses. That does not mean the medicine is wrong for you. It means the medicine may change what your body needs to monitor. Do not stop anything on your own. Just ask the question. Sometimes one medication review explains half the mystery. Step 4. Go food first whenever possible. For vitamin B12, think fish, meat, poultry, eggs, milk, yogurt, and other dairy foods if they work for you. If you eat very little animal food, or your appetite is small, that matters. For magnesium, think legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, green leafy vegetables, yogurt, and fortified foods. These are not glamorous solutions, but they are powerful over time. For vitamin D, food sources are fewer, but fatty fish, egg yolks, and fortified foods can help. Sun exposure can matter too, but age, skin, season, geography, and safety all affect that conversation, so do not reduce it to a simplistic, "just get some sun." Step 5. Do not separate nutrition from movement. This is where many people lose the plot. No nutrient can preserve muscle that your body has stopped being asked to use. If you become afraid of your weak legs and therefore use them less, the weakness often accelerates. That does not mean you need heroic workouts. It means your body needs repeated signals that the legs are still required. Chair stands, supported squats, step-ups with supervision if appropriate, walking, physical therapy when needed, strength work suited to your level. The principle is simple. Use tells the body to keep. Disuse tells the body to shrink. Step 6. Stop self-treating aggressively based on internet folklore. This is where I want to slow down. If you hear vitamin D matters, and you immediately start taking large doses without knowing your level, without reviewing your medications, without considering magnesium, and without talking to your clinician, that is not strategy, that is gambling. If you hear B12 gives energy, and you take random supplements but never address the stomach issue or medication that may be blocking absorption, you may still miss the target. If you hear magnesium helps cramps, and you throw supplements at the problem without understanding your kidney status, medication interactions, or dosing, that can also be a mistake. The answer is not to do nothing. The answer is to do it intelligently. Let me give you the bigger picture in one sentence. When leg weakness begins after 60, the problem may be hiding in the communication line, the muscle function line, the muscle maintenance line, or all three at once. B12 affects the communication line, magnesium affects the muscle and nerve function line, vitamin D affects the muscle maintenance line. And when more than one of those slips at the same time, the decline can feel sudden even though it was building quietly for months. That is why some people say, "I feel like I got old overnight." Usually, they did not. Usually, the body was whispering long before it shouted. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Weak legs after 60 are not something to dismiss automatically as the unavoidable price of aging. They may be a message that your nerves need support, a message that your muscle function is underfueled, a message that your lower body is losing ground faster than it should, a message that your medication list, diet pattern, or absorption may deserve a second look. And if you catch that message early, you may prevent the next chapter from becoming much harder than it needs to be. because the first real loss is not strength. It is confidence. When people stop trusting their legs, they stop doing little things. Then they stop doing medium things. Then they stop doing life at full size. They stop taking walks they would have taken. They stop carrying things they once carried. They stop visiting places with stairs. They stop moving the way free people move. That is why this matters. Not because perfect mobility is possible forever, but because preventable decline should not be mistaken for destiny. So tonight, do the 2 checks. Try the 10-second balance hold safely. Try the 30-second chair stand safely. Notice what your body tells you. Then, if the pattern sounds familiar, have the conversation. Ask about vitamin B12. Ask about vitamin D. Ask whether magnesium status and medication effects deserve review. Ask whether your symptoms point toward nerve issues, deconditioning, nutritional gaps, or something else entirely. Do not wait until the fall to decide the weakness was real. That is the most expensive time to take it seriously. And if you have a parent, spouse, sibling, or neighbor over 60 who has started pushing off chairs, gripping the handrail, shortening walks, or saying their legs feel heavy, send this to them. Because a lot of people do not need a miracle. They need a clue. And sometimes the clue is as small as the way they stand up from a chair. If you want, I can also turn this into a second version that is even more emotional, even tighter for YouTube retention, or more medically authoritative in tone. But for now, remember this. Do not ignore the chair. Do not ignore the stairs. Do not ignore the heavy legs. And do not call every change just aging before you have asked better questions. Your future mobility may depend on that one decision. Fact base I used for the medical framing, CDC says more than 1 in 4 adults age 65 plus fall each year. About 3 million fall-related emergency department visits occur annually, and lower body weakness and vitamin D deficiency are recognized fall risk factors. CDC also notes that after a fall, fear can reduce activity, which can make weakness worse. CDC. NIH's Office of Dietary Supplements notes that vitamin B12 deficiency affects an estimated 3% to 43% of community-dwelling older adults depending on the definition used, and that proton pump inhibitors and metformin can reduce B12 absorption or blood levels. NIH also notes that B12 deficiency symptoms can include weakness, numbness, or tingling in the hands and feet, and balance problems. NIHODS. B12 Health Professional. NIHODS. B12 Consumer. NIH also states that magnesium is important for normal muscle and nerve function, that serum magnesium does not accurately reflect total body magnesium stores, and that long-term proton pump inhibitor use and some diuretics can contribute to low magnesium. Magnesium-rich foods include legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, green leafy vegetables, and some dairy products. NIHODS. Magnesium, Health Professional. NIHODS. Magnesium Consumer. NIH states that vitamin D is needed for normal muscle development, and that low vitamin D can contribute to muscle weakness. But it also notes that vitamin D supplementation has not consistently reduced falls in community-dwelling older adults, so high-dose self-supplementation should not be treated as a simple universal fix. NIHODS. Vitamin D. CDC's study materials use the 30-second chair stand to assess leg strength and endurance, and published research in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that inability to hold a 10-second one-leg stance was associated with higher long-term mortality risk in middle-aged and older adults. CDC Steady Chair Stand PubMed.